In the new updated paperback edition of her New York Times #1 bestseller, Caste, Isabel Wilkerson writes, "A caste system relies on strife and inequity to sustain itself. It programs people to believe they have no stake in the well-being of those they have been told are beneath them, those they are told are unworthy, undeserving. It makes for a less magnanimous society, a built-in us versus them distance between groups. Because of the caste system, we more readily turn against one another. Because of caste, we insufficiently protect our own. Because of caste, along with other breakdowns in society, our democracy is in danger." And we're back with Isabel Wilkerson. This new updated version takes us into the present day battle for the future of American democracy in a way that I didn't anticipate in the first read of the book.
Yeah. I think that what we're seeing right now is the responses to a configuration in our country's demographics that no one alive could ever anticipate. We don't know what it's like to be in an inversion of the historic demographics of our country, with one group, the dominating majority group that's been in power and dominant majority for as long as there's been the United States. And the anticipation that the census has set us up for, the anticipation that by 2042 or 2045, that historic majority would no longer be the majority. And we also had the first rumblings of that with the 2020 census, which indicated that for the first time in American history, the historic white majority actually fell in number, still the majority by far, but it fell for the first time in our country's history. And I believe that all of these things are connected. We're facing an existential crisis as to who we are as a nation, as to what kind of country we wish to be. I think that there's already a growing sense of alarm on the part of some people, fear, insecurity, and resentment, and a desperate effort to maintain dominance.
You say in the book, this era is the country's karmic moment of truth.
The karmic moment of truth as to who we are going to be as a country. One of the things that I think is so powerful about this as a lens through which to understand ourselves is that if you think of ourselves as our country as like an old house, and that old house has been around for many, many generations, as we know, it's 246 years old. And when you have an old house, you know that the work is never done. You never think that, you get a new hot water heater, you get a new furnace, and you're done. You never have to think about it again. An old house constantly needs work. And when you take possession of an old house, and we as the current occupants of the United States of America essentially are the occupants of this old house, then it's not something that you get emotional about. It's not something that you go blaming and assigning shame. This is something that you roll up your sleeves and you figure out, what is it going to take to get this house in shape so that it can survive and thrive for many, many generations to come. That means looking at every single system. I view myself as sort of the building inspector of this old house called America. And in that case, you go in and we are not the ones who built the uneven pillars and joists and beams or the frayed wiring or the corroded pipes. But now that it is in our possession, it is our responsibility collectively as a country to fix this old house, to look at those systems and to figure out, what does it take? Is it a repair? Is it an overhaul? What does it take?
Yeah, so the book is filled with that kind of building inspector work, diagnostic work, but it also, when you turn to your notes of hope sound like Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech. You talk about a world without caste, saying in a world without caste, being male or female, light or dark, immigrant or native born, would have no bearing on what anyone was perceived as being capable of. And you go on from there with this vision of the world without caste, which was in the first edition of this book, which is in this edition of this book. And we can feel in that writing your optimism after having presented to us an extremely difficult frame in which to be optimistic. But you retain optimism.
Well, I would say that the act of writing this book was an act of optimism or an act of hope. I wouldn't have written it if I didn't have hope. But I would also say that I have the kind of hope that one would have when you are in a family and you realize that there's a pre-existing condition or there's something that runs in the family, whether it's hypertension or whether it's diabetes, whatever it may be. And you don't just give up as a result of the fact that you discover this. And it also means that you are looking at the history. When you go to the doctor hands you these pages to fill out, and what the doctor wants to know is not just your history, but your parents' history, your grandparents' history, because there's a connection between what happened in the past and what is happening right now. And you want to get to the root of it. You might go to many, many specialists. You also may get many tests, X-ray, MRI, CAT scan. All of these things are necessary to understand what is going on underneath, if there's any hope of actually solving it. And you certainly can't solve what you haven't named. You can't fix what you haven't acknowledged. And the first goal of all of this is to get people to be aware, to get people to know, to get people to engage with the history, to know how did we get to where we are right now.
I think all of your readers would see what the governor of Florida is trying to do with books in schools as part of the story you tell in this book, the preservation of caste.
We have 20 years before this inversion of our country's demographics as projected by the census. That means we have 20 years to figure out who we are as a nation, what do we want to be, what do we stand for, and who do we want to include in this new iteration of our country? And how can we be fairer? How can we be more equitable? How can we be more humane as a nation? And that, I think, that's what we're called upon to do. This is not the time to be discarding history. This is not the time to be banning knowledge, which is what I think book bans are. They're banning knowledge, not just the books. This is not the time to be doing that. This is a time where we need to know more than ever how we got to where we are.